as we observe the baby, we just first of all just look at him without touching him, just looking at his posture, his state of arousal. He's asleep, but has a little bit of movement. We're just going to make sure we can see the whole baby here, okay? And just watching whether he's in flexion or extension. He is in some flexion, lower extremities. In the upper extremities, he's a little bit of flexion. So upper extremities and lower extremities are somewhat flexed. At this point in time, you can listen to my voice. He has an eye opening. I'm just going to shine the light at his eyes. He doesn't like that. Some eye blinking and some movement of the head, a little bit of the extremities, a little bit of change in the respiratory rate. Do that again. Just a little bit more of a response. Wait for about 5 seconds and see if he quiets down. What we're doing is we're seeing if he habituates to the stimulus, and gradually should diminish as far as the amount of response. A little bit of movement in the upper extremities, and still some movement of lower extremities a little bit there. Still doesn't like that. Certainly he responds to the visual stimulus. Just quiet down, and then we give an auditory stimulus. Eye opening. So he has some response to the auditory stimulus. At his doll's eyes, and this is a good way to examine extraocular movement in a baby. You can see that the eyes should turn opposite the direction of the head. You can see his eyes are moving the opposite direction. That's the doll's eyes. That's a normal response. He's got full EOMs. We can do it all the way vertical, up and down. Again, the eye is moving the opposite direction the head is moving, and that's a normal response. And then we can just look at his facial expression as we tickle his feet here, and we should get a cry. And we can see that he's got full facial expression in the eyes because Oris touched down. He's got good nasolabial folds here. And the cry, we can judge the quality of the cry. A little bit soft, but he certainly responds and lets us know that he doesn't like that. Just watching whether he's in flexion or extension. He is in some flexion, lower extremities. In the upper extremities, he's a little bit of flexion. So upper extremities and lower extremities are somewhat flexed. We're going to now look at the upper extremities. And looking at the upper extremity, we want to bring the head to the midline so we're not reinforcing one side or the other side. And what we'll do now is we're going to look at passive range of motion. And we'll just go through the shoulder, at the elbow, getting some resistance, but can extend full out, easy to get out. At the wrist, have the full range of motion there. And we're just going to see a tone by shaking the wrist back and forth. Go back and forth and see how easy that shakes. And looking at the other side, again, just how easy the wrist moves on the wrist. Again, going out to full extension, the elbow, and then passive range at the shoulder. We're now going to look at arm traction. We're just simply going to take the baby by the wrist, and try to get the head in midline, pull the shoulder up, and just see until we actually get the shoulder off the mat. We can see that this arm is fully extended, and the angle here is almost 180 degrees. We can do that over here. Here, a little bit of flexion here, but we're well beyond 90 degrees, and more like almost 170 degrees, 160 degrees. The next maneuver that we're going to look at is the arm recoil sign. And what this is we're going to put the baby into flexion and hold it into flexion for approximately 5 seconds, and then quickly extend and release. And these arms should recoil quickly into the fully flexed position. And he leaves his arms extended. So this would be a decrease in the arm recoil. We'll do that one more time. Putting the arms into flexion for approximately 5 seconds. And quickly extend them and release. It brings it somewhat back, but it's not a quick recoil. It should be almost like a loaded spring where it quickly springs back into position. Again, reflecting lower tone. At this point in time, we're going to look at the tone in the shoulder girdle by doing the scarf sign. I'm going to move my hand so that we'll try not to get in the way of the camera. We're going to take the hand and pull it across the chest, all the way over here to the shoulder, and see if we can bring it beyond the shoulder. We get a little bit beyond the shoulder. We can certainly bring the elbow to the midline of the chest. And for a full-term infant, this reflects tone that is low, so this is hypotonia. We can do the same thing for over here. Again, pulling the arm across the chest and to the shoulder, and again this arm comes well beyond the midline, not to the shoulder though, so some tone but lower tone than what we'd normally expect in a full-term infant. What we're going to look at now is a grasp reflex. We look at the posture of the hand. Baby's hand shouldn't be, oftentimes is in a flexed position with the thumb tucked under, but shouldn't be really a tight fisted position. But then when we stimulate, place the hand right in the palm, there should be flexion and a grasp, and that's a palmar grasp, and that is normal. Baby's doing that. Okay, good. You can see how he's holding on there. Okay. We're now going to look at the lower extremities. We're going to look at, first of all, just the passive position of the baby. The baby is in somewhat flexion, but not off the mat. We'll look now at range of motion at the hips, coming into flexion at the knees, rotating the midline, pushing some resistance, can't get totally out, but almost to the mat. So a little bit more rotation or abduction than what we should do. Then we can extend and flex at the knee. That's pretty easy, reflecting lower tone at the knee, and symmetric. And looking at the ankle, again we have full range of motion. In fact, we have decreased resistance. We can then try to jiggle that a little bit and just see what type of movement we get in the ankle, and see that it's fairly loose. We can check for ankle clonus. There's no ankle clonus. The other thing that I like to do is to hold the one leg straight and then just look at the other leg, how well I can extend it up. Do the same thing with this, just see how up we can get. Again, that's higher or more of an angle as far as extending the or flexing the hip than what we should be able to normally. Again, reflecting lower tone. We can now look at leg traction, which is simply taking the leg, holding the ankle, bringing it all the way up, and lifting it till the pelvis is a little bit up. And this angle really shouldn't go, at the knee should not, it should be less than 100 degrees. And here we've almost got it out to about 160 degrees. Looking at the other side, seeing about the same thing. We can also look at leg recoil, which is actually taking the baby, holding in flexion, holding it for 5 seconds. And then quickly extending and releasing. Baby does have some recoil in the legs. Doesn't go into full recoil, into partial recoil. Again, reflecting lower tone, but there is some tone. And we can do that one more time. And just full flexion. 5 minutes. And quickly extending. And he does come back to recoil position. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to do the popliteal angle, we're going to flex the thigh on the chest and the leg on the thigh, and now we're going to now extend this leg. And in the popliteal angle, we shouldn't be able to get beyond 90 degrees, and we can get it extended up here, again, almost about 160 degrees. So that reflects lower tone. We'll do the same thing over here on the left side. We'll extend it. We're able to get almost 160 degrees. And now we're going to look at the heel of the ear. We're going to have the baby in the supine position, head in the mid position, and you take the leg, and we're just going to see, try to keep the pelvis flat, how close we can get to the ear. We can almost get to the ear. In a normal baby, we really should be able to get much past the abdomen right here. But at the other side, with the ear and getting closer than what we should. Right now we're going to look at the tone in the neck, and we're going to do that by looking at head rotation. We'll just take and rotate the head towards one side. We can go well beyond the chin, which would reflect lower tone in the neck. We'll do this to the other side. Again, be able to extend the head beyond the shoulder. We can again look at the tone in the neck as we do traction and pulling on the baby. See how well he can bring the head up off the mat. You can see he's having difficulty with that, which reflects again lower tone in the neck. And then we can bring it all the way up to the upright position, and his head falls forward, and we'll just see if he can bring his head back up. We should be able to do that within 30 seconds. And we're looking at the posterior extensor muscles of the neck. Again, he's having difficulty with getting that head up. We can look at, as far as looking at the anterior neck muscles, bringing the head up to a position. See if you can bring that up with his head extended. See if you can flex. He's having difficulty with bringing that up. Okay, a little bit of time. And again, reflects lower tone and strength in the neck muscles and for head control. He's trying to do that. We're now going to put him in the prone position. In the prone position, we're going to let his head start out in the midline to see how well he can just turn his head one side. He should be able to turn his head from side to side. And he does do that. That's good. And most infants in this position will get the hips tucked under, almost like this, so that they're up, little bottoms up in the air, and the arms are tightly under here. If we just put him in a position where he assumes the position on his own, then he's a little bit closer to the surface of the mat than what he should be as far as his legs abducted and flat on the mat. The other thing we can do is we can bring his arms back here and see how well he does as far as bringing his arms forward into flexion, or whether they just get stuck. Again, a full-term baby with normal tone should be able to bring those arms up, and he has a tendency to leave them in extension. We're now going to look at ventral suspension. We're going to turn the baby over on his tummy, and we're going to see how he can extend, how he can maintain axial tone. Here he's draped over my hand. His head comes down fairly close to my hand. He should be able to extend his head a little bit better. He's trying there. That's good, though. Should be able to extend his hips a little bit more. But again, he's pretty well draped with the legs in somewhat flexion, the arms somewhat in flexion, but just more extended. Usually, a typical baby will be more in flexion at the extremities and have a little bit more extension at the hip and at the head. Now we're going to go to vertical suspension, and we're just going to hold onto his shoulders and be able to see how he does as far as holding him up. And again, the shoulder girdle should make it so that I don't have to keep trying to hold on to him, which I'm having to because he's slipping through because he's got lower tone at the shoulder girdle. And he's still pretty well in extension as opposed to being in flexion. So this would be lower tone in the shoulder girdles, in the shoulder girdle. We'll just try to put him in the midline, and then we have control over the lower extremity and try to get it into flexion at the knee and relaxed, and then striking the patella. We are getting some reflex there. It's not hyper, a little bit hypo, but certainly it's there. We'll just do it over here, and we're definitely seeing a knee jerk. So there is some reflexes here, but a little bit lower. The ankle jerk, again, we can gently dorsiflex the ankle and then tapping at the Achilles tendon. We have to get the baby to relax. And this can be a little more difficult to obtain, especially if the baby has lower tone. We're seeing some though. An alternative way to do this is just put gentle pressure on the ball of the foot and then just tap the fingers. I think I'm getting a little bit of a jerk there. The biceps jerk, and that's somewhat flexing the arm and then tapping. Hard to get that reflex, and very rarely, if ever, can you get a triceps jerk on a baby. So you're not getting it there. We'll look at this other side. Again, getting a little bit of one there. So it has biceps jerk. Same way over there. The reflexes are very important in this baby because with this low tone, you're trying to sort out whether this is an upper motor neuron problem or a lower motor neuron problem. With preservation of the reflexes, this lower tone, hypotonia, would fit more of the upper motor type of picture. And let's look at the plantar reflex. The plantar reflex in the baby, it's important to go down the lateral aspect of the foot and not come across the ball of the foot, because when you do that, you stimulate the grasp, the plantar grasp, and so you're going to get a plantar grasp. So if we come down the lateral aspect of the foot, we can see the toes fan and go into extension. The great toe goes into extension. So that would be a upgoing toe, dorsal flexion of the toe, which is a normal response in the baby. You also not only get the upgoing toes and the extension of the great toe, but you also get flexion of the fascia lata. So again, watching that again, you see that that's definitely an upgoing toe. Now if I were to come across the ball of the foot, then I would start getting into flexion or the plantar grasp. Looking over on this side, again, going up with the toes. And it's a dorsiflexion of the toes, the great toe and the other toes. We'll look at the suck reflex and encourage him to see if we can get some suck here. We're seeing some sucking, although I can get this away from him, but he is sucking some. Okay. And now we'll look at the root reflex, so we'll just stimulate the corner of his mouth and see if he turns his head towards that. And he's really not moving his lips or his mouth towards the stimulus, so not getting much of a root reflex. We're now going to look at the Moro reflex. The Moro reflex is that we'll have the baby in flexion, comfortable, unsuspecting, the stimulus is coming, and then we will drop the baby for a few inches. He goes out into extension and flexion at the elbow, and then gradually comes back in, and oftentimes the hand is in a C position with the thumb and the index finger. Do that one more time. And just watch the movements of the hands. Okay. It goes out, and oftentimes there'll be a little bit of a cry there. Okay. The other thing we can do is that we can look at a Galant reflex, which is actually putting the baby in ventral suspension and then stroking one side of the back, and the buttock should curve towards the stimulus. So you can see that there is a positive Galant. and having the baby relax. We do the other side, and the buttocks moves towards the stimulus on the other side. We can then look at walking reflex. See, the baby will take some steps as we try to move the baby forward in a walking fashion, and he doesn't want to do that. What we're going to look at now is a grasp reflex. We look at the posture of the hand. The baby's hand shouldn't be, oftentimes is in a flex position with the thumb tucked under, but shouldn't be really a tight fisted position. But then when we stimulate, place the hand right in the palm, there should be flexion and a grasp, and that's a palmar grasp. And that is normal. The baby's doing that. Okay. Good. You can see how he's holding on there. Okay. We can do the same thing for the foot. And we can do a plantar grasp, stimulating the plantar aspect. Again, the toes should come down and actually, there we go, grasp the thumb. We're getting some plantar grasp there. Then we'll just feel the sutures, feeling the mitopic suture, the anterior fontanelle, going through the coronal suture, and they are not overlapping, they're normal. The sagittal suture coming back here, and then feeling the sagittal suture back to where I feel the lambdoids coming in a V shape from the sagittal down the lambdoids coming back here, and looking at the shape of the head, the symmetry of the forehead, and all that all looks totally normal. We can, rolling. Another thing we can look at as far as the head and symmetry of the head is we can look at the biparietal diameter, which is back here, and compare that to the frontal parameter. And again, this baby, the bifrontal diameter is less than the biparietal. So I think you can appreciate that. Now we're going to measure the head, which is a very important part of the newborn exam. And we try to get the maximum distance between the occiput and the frontal. So we want to make sure that we're the maximum circumference as far as the frontal occipital circumference. Measuring this baby's head measurement is 34.6 centimeters. I usually double check this at least twice to make sure I get the same measurement, if not 3 times, again making sure that I'm consistent. And so that is 34.6 centimeters.